Welcome back after a couple of weeks gone. We're so happy to be back for Ladies' Night, Women Empowering Women, where we get to chat with women past and present through channeling. This is going to be maybe a controversial night. I'm not sure. We'll see how it ends up, but I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be good. And I think you guys in the chat will be happy you showed up. So, Debbie and Adrea, how are you doing?
Good. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I missed everybody.
Yeah.
I know. I miss you guys too. I miss everybody in the chat, and love and light to all of the victims of the recent shootings, of course. It's terrible and things need to change. We all know that. And so, but we're sending them love and light and for their communities. And we know it devastates communities. It makes people afraid. It causes even the people who walk away, they have PTSD and all kinds of trauma to deal with. And then of course the people that have lost loved ones, and it's a lot, but we're here together, and we'll send out love and light to those people. And Adrea, you're in Canada, so I'm glad you don't have to, at least not on this level, have to deal with this stuff.
Yeah, as your neighbor to the north, it's very, very upsetting to hear these things. And, of course, all of Canada puts their arms around the United States, sends love, and let's figure this out together, right? Let's figure out how to stop this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So moving into our lovely lady we're going to bring in. I'm going to go through some history, but I'm also going to tell you a few things as to why this was my pick. So I picked Lizzie. Her middle name's Andrew, which I thought that was interesting. Andrew Borden. Lizzie Borden, the famous case of she famously was accused of killing her parents, put on trial. She was acquitted, but most historians and many, a lot of people that have looked at this case said she was the one that did it, but we're going to talk to her about that. She was born July 19th, 1860, and she passed away June 1st, 1927. Again, like I said, tried and convicted of an axe murder. And the victims were her stepmother and father. It happened in Fall River, Massachusetts, in August of 1892. No one else was ever charged with the murders. And she was, though, very ostracized after the murders, and kind of became a little bit of a introvert, stayed, what is it when they stay inside, a hermit, or kind of, agoraphobic a little bit, staying inside most of the time. But she did spend the remainder of her life in that town in Fall River. She died of pneumonia at age 66, just days before the death of her elder sister. They have kind of an interesting bond, been through a lot together.
Recluse. Yes, Deb. Yeah.
Recluse. Thank you, Viv. So she was born to Sarah Anthony Borden Morse and Andrew Jackson Borden. Her father was an English and Welsh descendant, and he grew up in very modest surroundings, and they struggled financially. And as a young man, despite being the descendant of wealthy and influential local residents, Andrew eventually prospered in the manufacturing and sale of furniture and caskets, which is interesting, then became a successful property developer and he was a director of several textile mills. So they were very wealthy, very much in the money, owned considerable commercial property. But although he was very, very wealthy, he was known for his cheapness. He was very, very frugal. And we'll kind of get into that. But one, for instance, was that most of the people at the time had indoor plumbing. They did not, even though they were one of the wealthier families at the time. So 3 years after the death of Lizzie's mother, Sarah, Andrew married Abby Durfee Gray, and Lizzie stated that she called her stepmother Mrs. Borden. She didn't call her mother or stepmother. And she kind of never talked about their relationship, but they believed they kind of had a cool relationship, not super warm. Now, the reason that I chose her is because Cassie has her own channel where she talks about crime cases, and she talks about movies that depict the crimes, true crime. And then she kind of compares the two, and she does a lot of research to find out about these cases. And she is also a channeler. So she, behind the scenes, she talks to the people that she's going to be talking about. And she always asks them, what would you like me to focus on? Is there something you would like me to, something you'd like to get across to people that I can help you with? And for just an example, when she did JonBenet Ramsey, her mother requested that Cassie use any pictures she could find of her not dressed as a beauty queen, just use regular little girl pictures for telling the story. And so she did. So she kind of talks to them and finds out what they would like from her as she tells the story. And what Lizzie said was that she really wanted Cassie to focus in on what was happening with women at the time, and to focus in on the town that she lived in and how oppressive and conservative and how limited the choices of women were at the time. She also had a few little stories that Cassie found in when she was doing her research that were a few incidences that led up to the murders. So it might help us to give a little context to what was happening in kind of Lizzie's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
The girls were really kept under lock and key, right? The women were expected to do everything around the house, everything for the males of the house. They did have a housekeeper, but Lizzie and her sister were expected to take care of everything and everybody. And they were also, had very strict guidelines as to how to dress, what to be like, and how to be ladylike, and how not to talk to men, and a lot of rules. In 1890, Lizzie got to take a trip to Europe with women that were in her community and had the time of her life. It was the first time she'd been free, the first time she could look, go into museums and read and just have all of these experiences with other women her age. And she had the time of her life. And on the boat back, she was so distraught because she told a woman on the tour she did not want to go back because her life at home was so unhappy and so restricted. Another story that came up was that in weeks before the murders, her father, they had a big thing of soup that had been made. The soup had gone bad, but the father insisted they eat it because he was so cheap. He wouldn't just throw it out. The whole household ended up getting extremely ill with food poisoning and getting dehydrated, getting sicker and sicker. They couldn't get well, and he refused to call a doctor, again, because of the fact that he was too cheap. And they literally did fear they were going to lose their lives because he insisted they kept eating this soup. It was bad. They kept getting sick, and they all almost died because of it. That was in 1892, right before the murders. Another story was the pigeon story, and that happened a year before the murders. Lizzie was a notorious animal lover. In fact, she left the majority of her money which she inherited after the parents were killed, to an animal charity. She loved animals, and she helped to take care of some pigeons that they had made a pen for, and she had just kind of refurbished the pen in some way and built it up and everything. And some kids had been teasing the pigeons, and one day the dad just snapped and decided he didn't want to deal with that anymore, and he killed all of the pigeons. And she was, by all accounts, extremely upset about this, traumatized by this. And that happened a year before the murder. So those are just some instances that are kind of give you some context as to where her mindset was going. And then just the overall feeling like, I don't have any way out of, I'm trapped here. There weren't very few ways of women to live. They could either live with a man, and then they would take all your money or whatever you had and it would be theirs, or you had to stay with your family, stay with your parents. So on the day of the murders, the mother was killed first. The stepmother was killed upstairs in the bedroom while she was putting bedding on the bed, and she was hit 20 times with what they believed to be a hatchet. They always say an axe, but they believed it was a hatchet. Not that makes it any better, but that's what they actually think the weapon was. And then when her father came home, he always took a nap in the afternoon. He laid down to take his nap, and she hit him in the head 10 times with a hatchet and killed him. She didn't have any blood on her. One theory was that she wore his coat to kill him, took it off and put it under his head, so it looked like he was laying on his head, and then the blood got on it, and it was his blood, obviously. So that was what they think she did. Some people thought she may have killed them naked. People said at the time, that would be more scandalous than the actual murder at that time, had she done it that way. So they don't think that's what she did. They think she did it in the coat. So the last thing that I will say is that one thing that she also told Cassie to focus on was the trial. And the trial was 12 men were her jury, no women on the jury. And what she told Cassie was that had there been women on the jury, she is sure that she would have been found guilty. And the reason was because women would know that there were moments that they also felt so trapped, they would have done anything to get out of their situation. So they would have understood that a woman would be capable of this. She believes that the reason the men did not find her guilty was because they thought, well, a delicate woman could never do something this violent. No, and not a woman of that kind of breeding. And she was so very, very conservative and very ladylike. There's no way she could do something like that. But the other reason is because if they admitted she did that to her parents, that means their daughters, their wives could do something like that to them. Mm-hmm. And that was too scary of a thought. And so they just didn't do it. They let her go. She ended up inheriting all the money with her sister. She lived a very quiet life. She was very generous with the money. She gave to a lot of animal causes. She helped a lot of her family members. She sent a friend's child through school, paid for all of her schooling. She never married, never had any children of her own. I did want to share these pictures with you guys. And this is her with a tennis racket. one of the very few pictures of her smiling. Most of them are not her smiling. That was another thing she'd ask Cassie to do, is if she could find any pictures of her smiling, she'd like her to use those. This is the more famous picture that you've seen of her, kind of buttoned up and how she was. And then this is the house. It's in Massachusetts. And this is her. I thought this was a really interesting picture of her as an older woman, when this is, kind of towards the end of her life, with her little dog on her lap. And that was her true love, really, of her life, were her animals. There was another picture actually with a goat. She was holding a goat on her lap. But everyone who knew her, probably not her parents, obviously, but everyone who knew her said she was a very kind and gentle soul. So I'd love to call her in and talk to her and see what you guys think. And also just before we do that, what your general feelings are about this story, how you felt about her, and anything that comes up for you guys before we start to actually pull her in and read on her.
The first thing I kept hearing was the house was a prison. So it was probably worse than some prisoners get treated. And the father, a lot of issues with the father, the dominance and abuse. We can look into that, but completely trapped, and you can't breathe. That's what the sort of vibe I was getting.
And 100%, Andrea. She was showing me that as well. And with that, this abuse was bizarre, like bizarre abuse, you guys. Like, if you like didn't do a task right, or whatever was expected, the way that they were they were brutalized. Brutalized, but it was bizarre punishments. Like, you need to sit here with your hands tied behind your back, and they would be you know what I mean? It would bizarre stuff, like dark, bizarre punishments that she endured here, her and her sister and other people. I feel like there was, did they have people working for them too? Because I feel like I'm surprised.
It's something about her birth mother. How did she die? Is that maybe that's something
I think she just died of cancer. I think she died of just a regular way. She did die young. That's why he remarried. And somebody was asking why kill the stepmother.
Oh, because she was just as bad.
Yeah, I got the feeling that she was like that. And there was also an incident that I forgot to mention, that they thought, he had another house, and the girls thought that they at some point would share that house together. And what he ended up doing right before the murders, I think a year before, is he signed that house over to his wife, his new wife. And so I think that closed the door on any idea of escaping this man. So yeah, that's what somebody was asking. And
I feel like because I keep seeing three people like that kind of were like, there might have been one person who like carried out, maybe this was Lizzie who carried it out. I feel like it was like almost like this showing the stepmother last straw, like just a last straw. That's it. And then that was it. And so I feel like as far as the rest with her dad, I feel like I'm getting 3 people.
Okay, so the 3 people I think might be
Okay.
Lizzie, her sister, and their housekeeper.
Okay.
On the day,
That's what I'm getting. Someone who
I
worked for
just got the
in the
chills.
house.
okay, so yeah, so on the day, her sister was staying with friends, so she was gone.
Okay.
She and Lizzie had told um, the housekeeper to go to the market or something like that, go to the market or go into town. And then that's when they think she carried out the murders.
Okay.
And then when
They helped.
they got there, yeah, I think that because I kind of got something similar that in the aftermath,
Okay.
they knew and assisted in some, lied about it or assisted in some way. I don't actually think they did the
No, I
murder.
don't see. I see one
Yeah.
person doing that part, but I feel like the others involved somehow knew or helped with the aftermath. Yeah.
Right.
But bizarre, you guys, bizarre. It was absolutely not a normal run household. And what was expected was bizarre. And if you didn't uphold it, was, it was just daily too. And and that Lizzie just remained so sweet. And I feel like the worst, she's saying the worst was watching her sister and this housekeeper being abused.
Mm.
And, not you can't do anything about it to help them. Well, she said, well, there is something you can do about it. But I don't mean to chuckle, but, it's just,
Right.
the whole thing is just tragic.
Right. She's saying one reason she had always always been angry at her dad was because he had done other things to animals, like through her childhood. There was a kind of a sadistic streak, but she's saying it was to control. It was to be like, I can wreck your world, basically, if I want to. And a lot of things were, she's saying it was, of course, at the time, she's kind of like, these things were not talked about. Nobody knew these things. Nobody talked about them. But there was so much trauma and so much, a lot of mind games, messing with your mind, making you think you're crazy, making you think,
that's him.
Yeah. So she's like, it was so, your reality became very skewed, hard to understand, she's saying. She loved her sister. She's saying she loved her sister. They stuck together a lot. And she's saying her sister coped a lot better. She was able to check out, like be with friends, go do stuff, like check out. Like she was better at compartmentalizing. That's what it is, compartmentalizing. Than she was. She really lived it. She held on to it. It hurt her. She's saying he broke her spirit. He broke her spirit.
Yeah.
I'm getting, he had just an evil streak in him. He was ruthless, hitting them, abusing them in every way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And as well, I get he would also hit the first wife, but he did not hit the second wife for some reason. He's black. Like his soul is black. He was awful, dark, hateful. But the thing is, at that time, we know that men in their households had the
could do
reign.
whatever.
They could do whatever. No
do.
one's going to question it. And even if they did hear, oh, you beat your kids. Oh, yeah, well, you're the father. So, that's what you do.
Right.
But this was different. This was very sadistic.
That's the word. Yeah.
It wasn't normal. It wasn't a normal, like, you get beat because you didn't do this or you didn't do that or you did that wrong. It was sadistic. And just like what you were saying, Kim, with the animals, it just carried over.
Yeah.
And you always find these like-minded people that find each other and do the craziest. They go on killing sprees together and stuff like that. That's the same with the wife. He found that wife. I mean, those two came together. She was
Cruel.
played right into it.
Yeah, she was cruel as well.
Cruel. Mm-hmm. And followed through as well. But I feel like Lizzie, in her mind, and how they felt they were going to die, and that this was getting worse and worse. Her dad was getting, and with the stepmom and now the dad, who were playing off each other, this was war. And it was either they were going to end up dying at the hand, or they were going to end this. And she chose to end it.
Was the sister wasn't there that day?
Not that day. The sister, I guess, had stayed with friends. And then the housekeeper was there, but Lizzie had sent her away. She'd sent her to go do something. Yeah.
Is there any chance the sister could have? I don't know. I'm just getting a sense. I don't know that the sister killed the stepmother first, then went to the friends, and then she killed the father.
It could be. I mean,
something like that. The sister knows about it or is involved somehow.
Oh, well, they're all involved. All three of them knew about
but
it.
I feel like, yeah.
Definitely.
Because it's funny because the housekeeper left. She got a part of the money and left the country.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was yeah. So
Marvita they made her eat soup with maggots in it. Oh, was the soup had gone bad and probably had maggots in it, and they were forced to eat it?
That's the one that made them sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they almost died. I mean, they were deathly ill. They were, and he refused to get a doctor. And I think that the reason that story comes up because that may have been the trigger of it's us or them, because it's us or him, because he's nuts.
Yeah.
And that it goes to Debbie's point about the extra odd cruelty, like forcing them to eat this, getting them sick, not helping them. That's the opposite of a parental role.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to add something that I keep thinking about this, and I don't know if it has anything to do with it or all, but this happened back east at the dead of summer. It was apparently really, really hot that day. And you think of all those layers and layers women used to have to wear at that time. And I do wonder if the oppressive nature of that life and then the oppressive heat, and you know what I mean? There's just something to it where I just feel like that day there was something particular that was just like, I'm done. Like I cannot take another day.
Mm-hmm.
So I do wonder if everything it was almost like a perfect storm that day. There was something about it where it's just like, because there are things about it that seem very organized, but then also very disorganized, because they did find a bloody hatchet, but because he had killed all those pigeons with his hands and with a hatchet, they said that's what it was. Oh, it was the pigeon blood. And at the time they didn't have any way to test if it was human blood or pigeon blood. So they were just like, oh, I guess, yeah. But yeah, it was like the middle of August. and back east.
And you can imagine if he's the type who kept them in the house like a prisoner.
Yes.
And it was so hot. Maybe can I just go outside and get, go down to the creek or something? No,
Exactly.
you stay in here. You go in the kitchen. You make me my dinner. And you just know the routine. People who live in a house like that with abusive parents, they know the routine. They know when they're going to get it. They know they're going to get it, right? They're going to get beat at some point, no matter what they do, even if they're perfect.
Yes.
So, I'm sure she was she just knew it was coming. Like, at what point is he going to flip out and beat me?
Well, the other sad thing I wanted to tell you guys, which I just felt it in my heart when Cassie said this, that when she got back from her Europe trip, that she had bought, they said that, everybody bought a few postcards, but she had bought about 200 postcards. And she painstakingly made this huge book of her trip to Europe and wrote every single detail out that she could remember, with all of these pictures perfectly placed in the book. And it just made I just felt so bad. You just knew that and just talking on the boat about how she was so sad to come back and how her home life was so unhappy that she hated to return. And then she has this book I guess everybody that came into the house, she'd show her book and was so proud of it, and it was just as sad. I just thought, this is just pathetic and so sad that she couldn't, and he had the money. If she wanted to live in Europe, he could have made that happen. You know what I mean? It's like, this did not have to be this way.
That's his evil streak.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I have everything and you're not going to have anything.
Exactly.
And we're not excusing her behavior. We're looking into what happened, like the why, right? Like,
exactly. Well, and not only that, like we've talked about this on Ladies Night with the rights and all of this stuff that
our system set it up.
You can only push people so far.
Yeah.
People can only take so much, and then they do snap. There's something in them that's just kind of breaks.
The ultimate oppression for her, just trapped.
She's saying she didn't snap, you guys. I think that's important. She said this was war, and that she hurt when I asked her that. I'm like, is this like a snap? Did you? She's like, you know what? It's not a snap. It was, you're pushed into a corner so far, and I wanted to save my sister and my friend, and that's the only thing I could think of is I'm saving their life. I'm saving them from this situation, from being killed, ultimately. I'm just stopping the madness. I don't feel there was a snap. Are you getting that, Andrea? Are you getting?
Yeah, it wasn't just like
it wasn't. She didn't just snap it was.
It had been building. Yeah.
That's more what I got to, is that it was I just mean people in general, if you
people
are going to have a breaking point. But I think you're right. I think it was and I think that's why I was bringing up all of these incidences, because I think it was a build
up. Yeah. She's also that this wasn't yes, it was there was a last straw that happened. And I'm wondering if it was those pigeons or something to do with her sister. Both of those things. It was kind of a last straw thing. And then it was go time. And again, she's showing me the system too. Like, there was no system of protection. So if you can picture yourself at war in your own home, in your own prison, in you're at war and there's no help coming, and it's you or them. And she chose her sister, herself, and her friend. And she does not. There's no regret for choosing her sister and her friend.
Yeah. And I think the violence was escalating.
Yes, I
It
think
was
so too.
escalating.
I think so
Now,
too,
the
Andrea.
rage of killing all those birds is a prime example of this man displaying his temperament and his regard for life, etc. He just went out there and destroyed all those pigeons just because.
Yep. And
Right? So
they
things
were
were really
next. Yep.
escalating. The violence in the home, the abuse. So really, he decided his demise because of him escalating things.
Yeah. And that's a good point. That's probably what she was talking about, that last straw. It was going to be them next.
Right.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, I mean, he's verbally saying horrible things as well. Like he could have literally said, "You'll be next."
He probably did.
Those pigeons, you
Yeah.
know. So there's a whole mental game going on, emotional game going on, a physical thing going on. It just there's nothing left. They felt they had to take action, and really, I mean, what else could they do? Because they know dang well if they went to the neighbors or a relative or the police, no one would listen or care.
No, because that's the way the system was set up.
That's the way it was.
Yeah.
Which is, and think of all the other females in the past and or present who are in that situation, and like we need to wrap our arms around them and send the energy that they be released from this violence and this quiet prison that no one knows about. It's just awful.
Yeah.
And it goes to show that power in the wrong hands, how awful it can be. So this man knew he had complete authority to do whatever he wanted, and this is how he behaved.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible.
And Cassie was like, I felt like there was mental illness with this man, that that he was getting worse.
Yes.
You know, that maybe he was just a mean kind of curmudgeon, but then he started to get worse and worse.
Yeah, he was sadistic and whatever the terms are, which was escalating.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, was he drinking? Did that escalate things? Like alcohol can exacerbate things. Even if there's alcohol or not, this guy was.
Yeah, no, he was mentally ill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And someone was asking how did she get to Europe? How did she get to go? But from what I remember Cassie saying was that it was like with a church group. It was like with a women's church group or something like that, where they were kind of going to go and do some missionary work. And so it was kind of like that. And it was a group where she would be monitored and watched, and in his eyes, you know, and that it would look good for her to go, that kind of thing. So she did get to go. And we can ask her why she didn't go to Europe, right? She didn't return.
Sure.
But
she never felt guilty about what happened. And we can see through her eyes why, right? She was saving her own life.
Yeah, she said no need. She was free. There was no need to go anywhere. She was free.
She was free.
Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps, because that's all she was looking for, was freedom. Oh, dear. Whew.
Yeah.
She hasn't come back. I don't see that she's come back. I don't get that vibe that Lizzie's come back as a person again.
No, not yet.
No. There's a lot of healing, I think, for her to be doing. Yeah. I'm just stuck on that that way of life that so many women went through in the past and still do today, and how can we shift that energy? You know, that kind of thing can still happen in a first world country, or
it still happens here,
third world. Yeah.
guys. So
How can we ask or change, or, if you notice somebody in a situation, just keep an eye open, or listen to people when they talk to you that might need some help and they don't know how to ask or say it, but you'll see the signs.
We're seeing some of this kind of thing in some of the like the polygamous groups and things like that, where they still are doing this type of stuff, where the men rule the roost and marrying off girls as young as like 12 and 13 and control and abuse and that kind of thing. And I think there's this idea that if they don't lay a hand on you, that anything goes. And abuse, like I feel like the majority of the abuse for Lizzie and her sister, and probably the housekeeper as well, was a lot of it was emotional and just cruelty and mental cruelty and just that control of every movement being controlled. That's abuse. That's abuse that causes trauma and causes PTSD. And
yeah, she is saying, Kim, she is saying that people feel like that physical abuse is like the worst. She endured both, but she's highlighting that mental abuse as being extreme for sure. He was both and he was very sadistic in his abuse, his punishments or whatever.
mm-hmm.
But she is highlighting that because it's don't put it in a category. Oh, he didn't touch you. Like you don't have a bruise to show me.
Right.
So we need to stop.
Right.
That needs to stop, because that levels someone. That emotional, brutal control, abuse stuff is brutal. Yeah.
I keep seeing locks on like doors and locks on like cupboards and things. I feel like that maybe one like punishment was like deprivation, like I'm going to lock up the food, I'm going to lock up the stuff, like you can't. So I think there's something about that as well. I do remember Cassie saying that she had that some weeks before the murders that things were disappearing from their house, being stolen. And later on, people said they wondered if she was stealing things and hawking them to try to get money, to keep money. So that, I completely forgot about that. But I am getting something about deprivation was one of the punishments, locking up the food, locking up everything. So like you can't have anything. It's all mine, basically.
And the next layer to that is he would get them to make him a huge meal, right? As a servant to him, right? Because everyone was his servant, even his children. And then he sits there and eats it, and they're not allowed to have anything. Like that's the kind of mind games that this man, right? Like they're starving, they have to make his food, or they'll get beat, and then he sits there and eats it, and they can't have anything.
Oh, genealogy says yes. It was reported that he locked up rooms and cabinets. So there you go. Wow.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
And that's probably part of his mental illness as well. He had so much, yet didn't want to spend anything, or was a miser about everything, withholding. I mean, that guy, he's an awful energy.
Yeah.
She wants us to be empowered by her story, in that she thrived personally. His abuse and whatnot, and what she grew up under for many, many years did not take the rest of her life, right? So it didn't dictate the rest of her life. She was able to find that freedom she gave back. She started rescuing, giving money to animals, so she empowered herself, even though the horrific abuses that she went through and like that, it didn't dictate the rest of her life. She empowered herself by doing what she loved, and that was rescuing animals or doing those types of things and being kind and loving and all of that. So she's bringing that up because whatever we've gone through, and if you're, I know that we all have stories, and with the family here, that it may be a little triggering hearing some of this. She wants you to remember how wonderful and magnificent you are, and to step into your own empowerment of you, and not allowing that part of your story be everything about, you know what I mean? Like, you are more than what happened to you. You're more than that. Remember who you are.
And if she was some kind of crazy killer, Lizzie Borden, she would have killed after, right? There would have been probably more. But
Right.
That was not the case. That was not the case. And if people don't think this can happen, it can. Look, there's modern day stories. There's that story of that girl whose mother raised her, and the mother always told her she was sick and couldn't walk and all. Do you remember? And
yes.
the girl turned 18, she killed her mother, and she's in jail now. But her mother made her sick all the time and told everyone that she was handicapped and all of this stuff, and putting her on medication she didn't need, all to control her daughter, right?
Yes.
And this story is very parallel as well as to the Menendez brothers. They literally said what we are saying happened to Lizzie Borden and her sister, that they lived in a house of horrors.
Yep.
True or not, I don't know, but it's very similar kind of thing, right? So it can happen in a rich family. It doesn't have to be
exactly.
We're not just talking about third world poverty. We're talking about
it's more likely.
Yeah,
more likely in the.
And somebody in the chat was asking about her life review, so I was just asking her, and she said that she was. She had a lot of support and love around her, and that going through it, that it really, she didn't realize, because there were, she didn't realize how much that they saw it as self-defense, that they saw it as, because they would show, like, it's like, I tried to escape here, and I tried to escape here, and I tried to make things better here, and I tried to make amends here. It's like, like everything was tried. And it doesn't mean that, well, so you had to murder him, I guess. It wasn't like that, but it was just like, there was an understanding of, particularly of that time, how you would get to a point where you think, there's nothing else I can do. The police aren't going to do anything. That, I have nowhere to go. If he kicks me out, I have no money. I'll die on the street. You know what I mean? It's like, so there was real love around her, and a lot of understanding, and that it was really, it was more looked at kind of like self-defense, because there really wasn't a lot of options. And it's hard to say, but she's worked through this with her mom and dad on the other side. She's worked through all of this.
Yeah.
And they did have a lot of, there's a lot to this. I don't want to get into the past lives and that, because it'll go on and on and on, but I do feel like there is some kind of karmic stuff also happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But she's very honest. I find her very very open and very frank about things, and very honest, and also I feel her responsibility, because I feel like she's like, I honestly really wish I could have figured out or thought of or done something differently, because it wasn't my first choice. It wasn't like I was dying to do this.
Right.
It was awful and horrible. And she did go over it later in her life thinking, is there something else? Was there some other way? Was there some other way I could have? But yeah, she couldn't see it at the time. And she's saying too, she thinks that she had some almost like brain damage from her, from some of the things that took place. Like it
Of course.
it limited her brain, like the way she could, it limited her ability to problem solve and that kind of thing. So she even thinks that some of the physical things that happened to her,
Of course,
caused her to make dumb choices or make weird choices. Yeah.
Yes, similar to someone with PTSD. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's adrenaline, there's lack of sleep, there's fear, there's hunger, there's, just that dread and fear she was in
constantly.
And again, he created his own demise, as did the stepmother, because they allowed this to happen in the home and they thought they could do it, and it certainly didn't work out, did it, for them?
No.
It's very sad.
And she said thank you to Adrea for saying that her home was a prison, because that was one of the things she thought was, if I get caught, if this goes wrong, I'll go to prison, but I'm in prison.
Right. I'm already.
It doesn't matter.
So, but I just kept.
At least I could try to get out of prison. Yeah.
I'd say prison would probably be better for her than that house for anybody.
Right. Especially as a woman at the time, they probably would treat her pretty okay.
Asking that everyone just have that personal freedom to be safe and okay, everywhere, wherever you are, whoever you are, and not have to go through that. Yeah, Nancy, it's a tough one, and it's probably relatable to a lot of us. If you lived in a house like that, or you have relatives or a neighbor, or everyone probably knows a story where they know someone who has been in a bad home situation.
Well, how about that story of those 15 children that were chained to their beds and stuff? Yeah.
And the one girl escaped. Oh, I have goosebumps. The one little girl escaped, and she didn't even know how to talk because she was never allowed to talk to people. So the police officer, she was just kind of and he just was patient with her, and it's an amazing story. They got to this. She showed him the house, and then he called for backup. They went in, and all those kids were chained to their beds. This is modern times. It's only a couple years ago.
Times, yes.
In an average place, in an average, and what
neighborhood.
The heck?
You never know what's going on in the house next to you. I tell you, crazy.
Yeah. So she's got her hand on her heart, and she said, she said, thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for listening to my story. So I think she's very grateful.
Because she's not, over time, her name can be a joke or a term used for whatever. And that's so unfair. And I'm getting like full chills on
it. Me too.
Because no one's taking the sensitivity to look at the situation, her situation, and ask the why.
Right.
Not yet. Not did she do it or not, but what happened in this house? Who was this man? Who was this woman? Who were the girls? What was happening?
Right.
It's not a funny thing. It's not a funny thing to say, to refer to her story, It's serious, and it's reflective of things we need as a community to make sure isn't happening.
Right. And as they're today literally rolling back rights for women, that, these are the kinds of things you don't want these kinds of things to happen, where women are in a position where they're completely desperate and then something awful happens. So yeah, it's it's such a weird thing because it's such an old story, but it's so timely in so many ways at this time. Yeah.
And again, that's probably a bit of shift of this feminine divine energy versus the masculine, extreme masculine.
Toxic.
Yeah.
The toxic side of it. Yeah.
Balancing it out and teaching the young people, like we were talking about last week, about both those parts inside of us and how to balance yourself out. Clearly,
Yeah.
in her case, her father was way at the extreme. And, he was never sat down and, but I'm sure he needed psych meds. That guy is off the charts.
Yeah. He was in that. Well, thank you. What an really interesting lady and a tragic story, but I think one that is really important.
Yeah, I think that's why it's come through for you. It's this story. It's her story. It's the why.
Right.
Right? That story needs to come out, and then what can we learn from it? How can we help anyone? You can give to shelters, abuse shelters, or women who leave in the night with their kids, and that's all they have, and they go to these shelters and
yes,
these safe havens.
Yes, 100%. She loves that we talked about her story, her part of the story, which she identifies with the most, is her love for animals and what she did to help them and also other causes.
Kathy Ann, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Blessings to you. Yeah.
Yeah, she did good with the rest of her life. She
wants us to remember her that way, not
before. Because you certainly never hear that part.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part about her.
No, not at all. And just what an animal lover she was, and all of the time and money she gave to animals, and to and Patricia, the townspeople afterwards treated her. They whispered a lot. They everybody assumed that she did it. They kind of left her alone. She kind of became a recluse. And she just kind of did her own thing, she just said they whispered before I did anything. They would whisper about their family. They didn't. And there was nothing new.
It's almost like shame on them. They should have rescued us.
Yeah.
So they, and I feel like too that everybody knew what was going on in that home. Yeah.
At the time, not much you could do back then, but at least today, people can file reports or talk to the police. Police will go and knock on the doors.
Right, but back then the police didn't do anything. They
wouldn't have done anything.
Especially with a powerful man like that, right? He owned half the town. He owned everything. There's no way they would go after someone like that.
She's saying what they could do was let her go. They didn't put her in prison.
Right. But there you go. Well, thanks, you guys, and thank you, Lizzie, for talking to us and
her energy is very gentle.
Straight. Very gentle and very loving.
Yeah,
very sweet.
What a story.
Yeah, she just said thank you again. So she's just thanking us. She really is. I think she's really appreciative that we did this in a compassionate way, that, we weren't just like, judging it in some other way. So, well, good, guys. So where are we next week?
We will be on my channel.
So,
are you off? Okay.
Yeah, so I think the next one is on May 29th on your channel. May 29th on Andrea's channel.
May 29th. Okay, I'm writing it down.
I'm sorry, May 22nd.
May 22nd.
May 22nd. Watch our community pages. So
Yeah.
if we have any changes, just watch the
It'll be
community.
on a Monday.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can we
Makes
talk
sense.
about Debbie's sweater for a second as well, just to bring some
Yes.
energy and
No more-
knowledge to that?
Yes.
I
no
love
more
it.
Stolen Sisters is what it says. And so this is just in just keeping in mind and in memory, keeping the forefront, the Indigenous, the stolen Indigenous women, missing women, and keep that to the forefront.
Mhm.
We need to make we need to be recognizing this and not, I mean, it needs to be talked about more. Yeah.
Yes, we have
There
to
needs to be some action done, not just talking, not just talking. We need to
fight for our
we
sisters.
need to fight
And
missing and murdered Indigenous.
why are they
women. Yes,
disappearing en masse and no one's saying it?
And no one's
talking
saying
about it. Why
anything.
isn't it front page news? Why aren't they investigating these things?
So bizarre.
Yeah, it is bizarre. That is, horrible.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
Good. I'm glad you're wearing that, Debbie. And it's a wonderful reminder for all of us. Say prayers. There'll be some action done.
Mm-hmm.
Send action.
yes.
Big time.
And yeah, protection. Send angel protection around
That's a great idea.
every Indigenous woman.
That is a great idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just
absolutely.
lots of work to be done.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But we're the right team, right, everybody? We're a global team here, right?
That's right. Uniting. Let's unite.
Uniting.
Yes, absolutely.
Missing and murdered Indigenous women. Yes.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a nice week and a nice weekend, and we'll see you on the 22nd on Lilac Lantern. Okay.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye.